All right, so we are back with the latest episode of the College History Show, wearing My Girl is Stronger Than You shirt by Life is RX. Carrie gave it to me. You can make whatever you want out of it. Anyways, also wearing the Rogue hat. Today we're talking about accessory work. This is something that has kind of hit me personally. Sounds a little emotional, but it's hit me a little bit recently just because I was slapped in the face by something that I knew I needed to work on for about a year. So I've always known, well, not always, but since becoming more aware of this stuff, being more educated, and my time in CrossFit, I've always known my posterior chain, which for those of y'all who don't know would be your glutes, hams, and low back, were really weak. And by really weak, I mean weaker than they should have been. I, like Louis, and it makes complete sense. I don't know why people try to flip this around the other way. But Louis Simmons' whole thing of you should have, in percentages from strength in your legs from the front and the back, you should have, 40% in your quads and 60% coming from your glutes and hamstrings. Now this makes total sense. Some people in the world of exercise science try to argue with it because they say you have to have the reverse. But if you think about it, the glutes and hams are built just like mechanically to be your primary movers. So it makes sense that those should be stronger. And then he's shown through all his stuff that that is more important. But my back squat is now equal to my front squat, which was a pretty humbling moment when I realized that, and I was like, okay, let's throw on 20 more pounds. No. Okay, let's drop it down to 10 more pounds. No. All right, so this is a problem. So first question with accessory work is what to do. I know you all can't see that, that's mostly just for me, and this is my to do for the rest of the week. I know it's gonna be terrible, but what do we do? So first you gotta test for weakness. So you put yourself in a situation like I did, and I've been doing mostly front squats for the past month and a half, and then a little while before the break, which during the break I did nothing. So you put yourself in a test. So I've been doing front squats, I've been doing squat every day, so max effort all the time, and then this was one of my max effort days for back squat, and it just happened to line up. So I found my weakness. So, test yourself, and test yourself for different areas. So if you're used to doing pull-ups, overhand grip, try chin-ups with underhand grip. I found out that was also a weakness of mine, so I'm going to be working on that with basically the same program that I told Kara to use for her pull-ups, which have really helped a lot. Just with a supinated grip, working on that other angle that is Kara texting me right now. That is really unprofessional. Anyways, so you test yourself. Test yourself in a bench press, an overhead press. Test yourself in front and back squat. Are they, lining up? Your back squat should be more than your front squat. Should, by a substantial amount. Mine is not. And I know my glutes and my hams and my low back have been weak. That's really always been a source of problem for me. And I just haven't worked on it. So test your weakness. Find out what's going on. The second thing is, will this balance out by switching plan or switching strategy without accessory work? So the question would be, all right, in this instance, would my back squats separate itself from my front squat without my front squat taking a nosedive? Would it separate itself and get even higher if I just switch to, let's say, squat everyday 1.0 doing mostly back squats? Would that change actually help me? And if the answer is yes, it could be something like, what I'm doing with pull-ups, just switching grips. I don't have to do much extra work, other than what I was doing. I just have to switch grips, and that'll most likely work out. However, in the case of my squat, probably not, because that's there should be a much larger gap in knowing myself. I do know I have weak glutes, weak hams, weak low back. And it's, since they're even, that's too far for me. So I am going to throw in some accessory work to also aid, as well as switch over. So I am going back to 1.0, more back squats and front squats. But I'm going to throw in some accessory work that is going to allow me to get that right balance, the right ratio. So this is kind of similar to if you've ever listened to the Barbell Shrugged episode with, or any episode. He's been on a couple different podcasts. I think Wadcast podcast had him on too. Julian Pinot. Anything like him where he tells you, what was one of his measurements? You should be able to row 50% of your deadlift, of your max deadlift, for like 6 to 8 reps. Which is something I'm also working on because that's rowing with the supinated grip. And so instead of rowing with the pronated grip. And I'm actually pretty close, but I'm not there yet. Gonna move there. So, switching focuses, will this solve it? For my upper body, for my back, yes. So that's where we stop. For squats, no, not happening. So how much? How much accessory work should we do? So we switch focused, most likely. All right. So doing more back squats. How much accessory work should we do? And what should we do? First off, what accessory movement should we do? So in this case, since it is my posterior chain, which everyone likes to talk about, but no one really, for the most part, understands in exercise science. It's really interesting. But for my posterior chain, there are a couple things you could do. I could do leg curls with a machine or with bands. Don't really like the machine. Listen to Julian Pinot, him talking about your hamstrings in the squat are used as a stabilizing muscle to transfer power from your heel to your glutes and back and forth. So I don't really like that as much, as well as I'm a tall guy, so it doesn't really fit me. I could do what the West Side guys do, which is hook up a band and lay in a plyo box and do leg curls that way. That's possible. Now their focus for that is more connective tissue oriented, which wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, you could throw that in there. Just be mindful that connective tissue takes longer to build up than muscle tissue. But that could be something you do, especially if you're someone who starts getting like knee pain and hip pain and stuff like that, IT band stuff. That's a possibility to throw in there. I'll do a little bit more research into West Side and how they do things with that, but that's a possibility. So you could do the banded leg curls. I might do some of those, but that's not going to be my main thing. So what else could I do? I could do glute bridges. Which is basically lying on the floor. So if you're, how can I do this? Lying on the floor, legs up, and your butt is right here. You extend up. Could do that. You could do it with a barbell in your lap. You could do it with your back more upright against a bench and do that with a barbell. It works. And that would be a great thing. If I did not have any specialized equipment at the CrossFit gym I attend, I would do that. That'd be my go-to for this particular problem. If you have the opposite problem, then you can do knee extensions or something along those lines. You could do it with a band. You could do it just like putting a kettlebell under your foot. I've done that before. Done it with Ryan at his gym, which was actually really effective. I felt that more than I ever felt a knee extension machine back in the day. That was something about that weight hanging below your foot really forces more activation. I liked it. But we do have some specialized equipment at Mako CrossFit, which I'm going to use. I've been curious about but never used before, which is the reverse hyper. And many of you are going, I don't know what that is. Google it. It was a machine invented by Louis Simmons to help, one, build up for the specific purpose of building up the posterior chain, and also it provides a motion traction, which helps relieve back pain and hip pain, which my back and hips have been popping a lot lately, which is also kind of indicative of being weak back there. And it also will help with flexibility of the posterior chain, which I have basically none. that is the one area in which I don't have very good mobility. So I'm going to be using that. Now, it's important to understand what we're doing for accessory work. Accessory work, in my opinion, is usually done more bodybuilder style. So what that means is sets of 10. So you can pull up the video of Louis Simmons doing a reverse hyper demonstration for CrossFit, and he gives the prescription of so if you're doing a West Side style thing where you have heavy days and light days, on heavy days you're going to use 50% of your back squat max on the reverse hyper, and you're going to do 4 sets of 10. And then on light days you're going to do sets of 15, and it's going to be half, basically a quarter of your 1 rep max squat rate. Squat weight, not rate. So that's the prescription he threw up there. That's what I'm going to go off of. So those are my sets and reps per week. Louis, and this is another reason that the reverse hyper, since it's available to me, is something I want to do, is Louis claims, and we'll put this to the test through me, that you can do this every day and not have a problem because of the way it functions. And he's had college coaches and college athletes use it, and they come back with the same thing. And I believe one university out in the California area came back with some actual data on why that is. And then, so this all encompasses into volume. So basically I'm going to shoot for doing basically following the prescription. So doing 4 sets of 10 reps at 50%, basically Monday through Friday. Then Saturday, I don't have access to it Sunday, but Saturday, or at least 2 days a week, I'm going to go with the quarter of my 1 rep max back squat, 4 sets of 15, and we'll see how that works. So, a few modifications. If you do not have a reverse hyper, and you're doing, let's say, glute bridges, hip extension, I would definitely not do it as much, because the whole idea behind the machine was wrapped around this idea of restoration, strengthening, and being able to do it a lot. So if you don't have access to that and you're doing glute bridges, definitely, be a little more careful with your overall volume. But yeah, so that's accessory work. Accessory work is something to, you hear people talk about supplements, how they supplement your diet. That's how I really view accessory work, is it should be something added on that's going to give you an extra benefit on top of what you're doing. So as we went down this kind of checklist, we checked our weakness, then we figured out if switching our focus to just, hey, supinate, or if you're the other way, pronate, switch from front to back squat, change the focus to address the problem a little bit more, and if that doesn't help, then you add in accessory work. Now I've kind of fast forwarded that because that's something that I need to really create more of a gap. So I'm already throwing in accessory work in the lower body, but in upper body I'm just switching grips. Accessory work isn't that complicated. Ryan and I were talking about throwing out some stuff with weightlifting programming and all this, and I was like, well, what do you think about accessory work? And he kind of summed it up pretty simply. And in weightlifting, if you're terrible, you find where you're terrible, and that's where you do your extra work. So if you are not very strong in your back, you find yourself being pulled forward a lot, guess what you need to do? You need to do a whole lot more pull-ups and a whole lot more rowing. And maybe something like the reverse hyper and glute hams. If you're slow, work on speed stuff. Work on speed pulls. Every minute on the minute, just rip it, rip it, rip it. And it's pretty simple. So that's what's going on. This is the idea for accessory work in your next training session. Now, so how long should you do this? It's going to depend. It's going to depend on if it's just you've been training, not so well, and you fix it and you can stop doing it for a while and you don't regress to that point where you have that imbalance again. All right, fine. You don't need to do it anymore. Really, accessory work is fixing imbalances. Because, like, let's take the difference between someone built like me and someone built like a Chinese weightlifter. I'm going to have more difficulty in the squat portion. He's going to have more difficulty in the pull portion of a clean. That's just the way things work. I've got longer to go. If my squat goes up, everything goes up. The Chinese don't really train that way as much because I've trained more like a Russian. They modify it differently. It's the same, basically it's the same training system, old Soviet Union training stuff, but you adapt it to the athlete. So let's say you're someone who just, for whatever reason, maybe it's the way you're built, maybe it's the way your muscle fibers and nerves are laid into you, but you will just always have a weak posterior chain or weak quads. Then you really just need to always keep throwing that in and find the sweet spot for what keeps it within the right ratios. Remember, it's just balancing out stuff to keep you from getting hurt and to allow you to lift the most weight and be as fast and as strong and as amazing as you want to be. Similar to Julian's stuff of, hey, you should be able to barbell row 4 reps, 50% of your deadlift. And that's not, some arbitrary rule they're throwing up. I see all these CrossFit gyms throwing up these stupid rules of, you're not allowed to, do Olympic weightlifting on your own in the gym unless you can snatch body weight or snatch double body weight. It's these arbitrary numbers. I think they came from some college or something. It's like, okay, if you're built like me, I'm 6'3". To be able to, if I did double body weight, I would be competing on a very high level. If I was filled out to my maximum point of being semi-competitive in weight, I'd probably be about 220, 225. So if I could snatch double body weight, I would be competing at a very high level. So that's a ridiculous thing to say. It's ridiculous to say, well, you should power clean 3 times your body weight. I don't know about that. That just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense because it's this arbitrary thing that does not scale for body type. Now, being able to say you should row 50% of your deadlift makes sense because it's, do you have the back capability and the movement in your hamstrings and butt to stabilize weight? And so if you can do that for reps, of course you can deadlift that. And it's really in the interest of keeping you healthy and not letting you get hurt versus some exclusion thing. Because I'm not into that stuff. I think that's kind of dumb. But I do think the building up your support system is, building up your base is highly important. I hate to say it, everyone else says it, but your pyramid will only be as tall as your base is wide. So if you are lacking, for instance, in your hamstrings and your upper back, well, mid-back, like most CrossFitters are, most of you are lacking in your mid-back, you know who you are, then you need to work on that because that's your base. And if you make that go up, guess what? Everything else is going to go up because you can just handle more load. You are a stronger person. That's basically it. I think I beat a dead horse plenty enough. Wow, I cannot talk tonight. I need more coffee. So, please check out the YouTube. We will be having more videos like this. We have vlogs coming out now. Kara's doing a great job on those. They're very entertaining. Check out the Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I am now posting stuff of my own lifts on Instagram. So if you want to see me working on my reverse hypers, my chin-ups with a supinated grip, or anything else I'm doing, just my regular squat work or press work or whatever, you can check that out. Twitter, I'm actually getting more active on. So there you go. Check us out. Oh, and the website, C standing for collegelifter.com. And that is it.